And starts bragging about how he just knocked over this guy's game for $100K. I don't know what it is with these guys. They can't keep their mouth shut about nothing.
It goes up like a bonfire. I love it.
So who's gonna do it? You? I need Mickey for that one. New York Mickey?
So what, you want me to do a double?
I can handle it. I don't know if they'll spring for two guys. It's a two-man job.
I come in here every day.
I know.
I don't know you.
Very few guys know me. You're in a position very few guys ever get in. You have choices.
Look, I don't know if I can do this.
You made a mistake, and you gotta make things right.
There's a man going round taking names, and he decides who to free and who to blame.
You ever killed anyone? They cry, they plead, they call for their mothers.
When the man comes around,
I like to kill them softly, from a distance.
So that should have been some of the trailer for Killing Them Softly. This is the new film starring Brad Pitt as a mob enforcer who's looking into what happened with a mob poker game that was basically stuck up by a group of kind of dim-witted thieves who get the job done, but now someone has to pay, basically, and Brad Pitt's going to kind of figure things out. He brings in a friend of his, played by James Gandolfini, to also help in possibly whacking certain individuals. Richard Jenkins is a kind of a middleman working with Brad Pitt to figure out who needs to pay in the situation. And Ray Liotta is the guy who puts the whole poker game on, and he's done some shady things in the past with his own poker game, so now maybe the blame needs to be placed on him a little bit too. But okay, with all that said, I'll start with Laramie. Laramie, what did you think of Killing Them Softly?
I really, really liked Killing Them Softly. F cinema score notwithstanding. I've wrestled with this the last couple days. When you see as many movies as we do you just like something different? Whereas if you see one movie a month, you just want something the same. That's kind of comforting. I don't know if that's the disconnect there. But for me, Killing Them Softly, its main mistake, if I were to grade it in the A- region, would be that the subtext isn't subtexty enough. It's too upfront with the whole Obama/capitalism as a predator aspect. So they are very on the nose with it throughout. I would have liked a couple of beats of that, but not the entire film weaving in images from politicians. As a just gangster film, I guess it's completely nihilistic, it seems like, and perhaps that speaks to what critics like as well. But I love Brad Pitt in general. I loved Gandolfini in this. I liked Liotta quite a bit. I think the Scoot dude, I don't know his last name, but Scoot McNairy. Yes. Scoot McNairy was really good. I loved him in this. And I thought overall it was just a really solid drama that I would recommend to people, and then I guess be wrong. No.
Scott Mendelson, what did you think of Killing Them Softly?
I agree. I thought it was a very good film. As far as, yes, we see movies a lot, but it's a good, solid crime drama. It's got it's terrific actors, playing terrific roles. What I found most interesting about it is just the sheer quality of the conversational dialogue. A lot of the movie is basically just talking. 2 or 3 characters in a room having a conversation. And they're real conversations. They're not just talking about the plot. I would argue the best scene in the film is James Gandolfini's introductory scene where, without going into details, he and Brad Pitt sit at a restaurant and Gandolfini just pours his heart out, more or less. And it's for all the talk about the film being, pessimistic and cynical, it's a very somber, sad picture that does have a certain sympathy for its characters, even the ones that are, utterly doomed right from the start. And I think while there is a certain inevitability to the fates that certain characters will meet, it is, it's empathetic about that. There is a certain sadness to it. I absolutely agree that the biggest problem I have with the film is that the subtext is text. The film opens with, talk of, George W. Bush talking about the 2008 meltdown. Then you go to Ben Bernanke, and of course the punchline, eventually you get up to, Barack Obama talking about it. And, 1 or 2 bits of that would have been enough. For 2 reasons. A, right. It hits you over the head sledgehammer. It doesn't respect the intelligence of your audience to get it. And B, I frankly found it unlikely that these very low-level blue-collar mobsters would be watching C-SPAN in their neighborhood dive bars all the time.
The remote was broken.
Yeah, I mean, it's really? They're going to be
They want
watching...
quality programming, Scott.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Yeah, if I recall, and again, it wasn't even like they were watching like Fox News with the ticker tape and they were watching, the screen was filled up by the people speaking, and that's primarily what you only get on C-SPAN.
Right.
So not only were they watching politics on TV, they were watching C-SPAN, and I'm sorry, I don't hang out with a lot of blue collar working poor gangsters, but I'm pretty sure they watch sports.
I do, and they do. So.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, let's not generalize now, Scott. We don't. No.
But yeah, I think it's very well acted. Richard Jenkins is excellent. Scoot McNairy is fantastic. As is Ben Mendelsohn. It's just he plays a slightly less empathetic character. He plays a character that's slightly less wise to his faults, hence we sympathize with him a little bit less. Richard Jenkins is wonderful as a character, arguably someone that thinks he's more important than he actually is. And I got a certain, they're very different films, so bear with me. I got a certain Donnie Brasco vibe from it, in that it was a look at not the big mafia kingpins at the top, but the low-level people. The people that, frankly, when you look down to it, are the working poor of the underworld crime scene. And that's where a lot of the subtext was, the idea that criminal enterprises represent capitalism in its purest form because it takes morality out of the equation. And that's certainly a point very much worth making. I think it's worth arguing. But again, I think we get it after the first couple of times. And the repeated scenes of Bernanke, Bush, Obama, whoever, McCain, if he's there. Yeah, it's basically him, it's basically director, Andrew Dominic, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, jabbing you in the ribs with the ruler saying, get it, get it, get it, get it. We do get it. Visually, the picture has a nice, grimy, authentic quality to it. I wasn't as crazy about a certain slow motion scene that, it's a major sequence in the picture, and it's a sequence of violence, and it's done so stylistically that it loses some of its impact. Most of the violence in the film is very, brutal and realistic, and just, you see violence being done.
Right.
But this particular scene, for whatever reason, was done very stylistically that I think lessens some of the impact of the picture.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that.
And, as far as the cinema score rating, I'm frankly baffled by that. Not because I like the film better than other people did. I understand the F that something like The Box might get, which, completely goes completely off the rails in its second act. Even somebody like me that, went in wanting to like it, kind of turned against it out to a point. And also, Killing Them Softly did so little at the box office that I would have to imagine that most people that went theoretically knew what they were getting into. But that's obviously not the case.
Well, let's consider that's what the rest of us talk about when we thought of the movie. Hey, what do you think of Killing Them Softly?
I thought it was a very well-made film. It's everything looked great, everything sounded great. The acting was fantastic beyond belief. But again, the same problems that I had were what Scott and Laramie had too, which is just there's a lot of heavy-handedness of the subcontext, and it's just right there in your face. And I understood it. I got it. There's a great speech at the end that kind of sums everything up, and I felt that was fantastic. But all throughout, it's very strange that they would make you feel that way. But again, I think that the best things about it are just that the acting and the simple story, but all these folks that are also feeling the effects of the recession at the period, which it's not a present day film. It's made
2008.
It's set 2008. So I definitely enjoyed all that stuff. And the thing that I liked most about it also was the dark humor in it, particularly with conversations between Richard Jenkins and Brad Pitt, which I thought were very funny. And we'll get into some examples later, I'm sure. But overall, I'm generally positive on the film, although with what the director is trying to say with it, I'm kind of put off by it. And about the cinema score rating, I mean, I was in a theater with maybe 12 people, and 2 people left before anything cool really happened. So I can understand that, but at the same time, yeah, you know what you're getting into if you see this film.
I mean, I guess it would reflect on how little this movie did this weekend. That I would imagine people knew the kind of movie they're going into watching. But at the same time, I do think the marketing kind of sells a movie that's somewhat different, in the same way that I guess Drive kind of, which is a weird thing to argue because it arguably didn't sell a different thing than it was showing. It's just like with Drive last year, it's showing you exactly what that movie is. People just expected more from it, I guess. And I feel like Killing Them Softly is doing the same kind of thing. Do you think that's fair?
Well, I think, Drive and Killing Them Softly, they were truthful in advertising in that they showed you pretty much every major beat in the film, but they were false only in that you arguably thought that maybe the trailer was withholding something.
Or
there's more.
You're
and there wasn't
inferring
more.
you're inferring that there's more. Like this,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, no, what you see is what you get. And I think in general people aren't very good at reading trailers. I mean, even something, I remember other people that were shocked that, Observe and Report was a very dark film. It was like, if you watch the reason I wanted to see it was because of the trailer. Which, if you pay attention to the trailer, you realize you're not getting Paul Blart Mall Cop. But, it's there are films over history that have missold the film. I don't think this is one of them. I just think people thought, ooh, it's a Brad Pitt gangster movie.
I'll disagree a little bit on that point, simply because I don't generally watch trailers. I think the only time I watch trailers are when Abe and Aaron order me to. Other than that, but I think marketing guys have a much different view of the world, and they want the action beats front and center. And so if you have a trailer that's a minute long and it's 45 seconds of action, the human mind says this movie is action-packed. It just extrapolates that out. When in reality, they've put the only 45 seconds of action in the film in the trailer. So the marketing guys don't want to have truth in advertising. They want you in the seats week one. They could care less if you actually... I mean, ideally you'd like the film, but they're judged on week one box office. So a film like Drive, they're not going to sell, this is the quietest movie you've seen in the year. They're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think both Drive and Killing Them Softly suffer from that cognitive disconnect about expectations, and having not seen the trailer for either of them, maybe it helped me a little more really like both those films.
Which makes me curious as to why no one saw them anyway, unless someone spread a whole bunch of word of mouth about what the movie is, and millions of people listened to that one guy and said, "I'm not going to see that movie, I guess, this weekend." I mean, Scott mentioned prior that
10 million is a hefty opening for the week after Thanksgiving, and
true,
you're just not going to hit a number this weekend.
It's
Scott?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just cutting with my own review. I did like it quite a bit. I liked it a lot, actually. I purposely tried. Abe and I we tried not to let each other know what we thought of the movie, just so we can have some kind of surprise. And I was kind of hoping Abe wouldn't like it, just because we all, I think, have the same exact thoughts on the movie. I think it's very well acted. I think there's some very cool stylish things going on directorially. I like how the story plays. I like the straightforwardness of the story, actually. It's the kind of movie where I think you could easily, if this was a different movie, if it was lesser, or if it was more, I don't know, not necessarily creative, but if it was different, there could have been crazy twists and turns coming on and differing up what's going on in the action. But instead, it's very, you kind of know how this plot's going to play out, and it doesn't do anything to back away from that. Things are going to inevitably happen, and they do. But getting there was a lot of somber fun to an extent. There's a lot of dark humor in this movie that I like. There's a lot of performances that I like. There's a lot of different aspects that I liked about this movie as a whole. I do think, again, I agree with you guys that it kind of hits you over the head with the message or whatever of the movie, and it's not subtle about that at all. But it didn't necessarily hinder my enjoyment of the film. It's just more. I'm just aware that bit exists. I know the movie was 2.5 hours originally, so I'd be curious if.
Really?
Yeah. Right.
What?
Yeah, it was 2.5 hours. The first cut of this movie. So I'd be curious if the whole knocking over the head with the message would be kind of diluted more in that full version, perhaps. But
Huh.
I don't know.
Long cut.
It's interesting because it felt like a complete movie. I mean,
I know. I'm curious.
I mean, it didn't feel like it was missing anything, frankly.
I'm curious what else is there.
Interesting. I agree with what you said in that, in the vein of perhaps a Stephen King novel, it is tense and suspenseful because you know exactly what awful things are going to happen, and there's just no stopping this train, so to speak. And there's a lot of inherent drama in that. As far as, getting back, if I may, for a moment, about, the marketing,
Sure.
I saw the trailer made me want to see the movie, and I came away satisfied with what I saw. So, I mean, to be honest, I didn't see the trailer for Drive before I saw the film, and I didn't like Drive for a number of reasons that I'm still getting hate mail about a year later. But no, it's interesting how different audiences read trailers. For me, I sort of look like, okay, there's a lot of action in this trailer, but it looks like it's all in the same couple scenes. There's probably not much action in this film. But
I would say that the theatrical trailer for the film made me want to see it a lot. And that's the trailer that I think sells what the movie is the best. There's been, I keep seeing the TV ads for this movie, which they make it feel like it's like the next Snatch with Brad Pitt talking, not English this time or something. Like, that's kind of, it gives you like this, it's a really cool movie in the wake of Tarantino or whatever. Like, that's the kind of movie it's selling. And so that's kind of the one I'm more referring to, I guess, just because, like, that original theatrical trailer I was seeing, since the summer, because that movie was done. Because Killing Them Softly was going to come out in September. But then you get to these, like, TV ads that I'm seeing now, and, like, the blitzkrieg marketing that it did in the past week to make sure